Hello. Welcome to Season 8 of the Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, our theme is Make the Wives Pick. Since our wives have to watch these movies with us every week, and often complain about it, we made them pick the movies this season. If you want to see the list of upcoming films and follow along, check out our website at thehorrific.com. Thanks for listening. So I realize Season 8 is all about making our wives pick movies for us to review so that they can't complain about us making them watch movies that they didn't want to watch. It's all on them. Mm-hmm. But we've decided to take a little break. And we are going to do a couple of episodes on the new season of The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah. We were looking forward to it.
I guess it's the only season of The Haunting of Bly Manor. It is the new season in the Haunting Anthology TV show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. We did this for The Haunting of Hill House when that was relatively new a couple of years ago. And I really enjoyed that. It was so fun to go through those episodes and look at them from the sort of horror perspective, and then to have you to talk about them with afterwards. And so I just am absolutely delighted to talk about episodes 1 and 2 with you today.
Yeah, very excited. We're looking forward to doing this. I think we even called it when they announced season 2. We're like, well, we're going to do it again.
So these episodes will be a little bit different. We're talking, each one we're going to go over 2 of the episodes from the show. And then we won't have, our normal format where we do the introduction. Mm-hmm. If you have some fun facts this time around, that's fine, but I won't require it. Mm-hmm. And then we can just kind of get into it. And one thing I did differently this time around that's, I think will be fun, is I wrote down my predictions at the end of each episode. And so that way we can sort of reflect back, and you can not let me say I figured it all out ahead of time if we don't have proof that I did.
Yeah, I decided to, I started to read about facts, or about the show, and I decided to stop because I didn't want to know anything further. And so I was like, well, we'll just kind of save those for the end, the last episode or something, since we have an odd amount of episodes.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. They only did 9 episodes instead of the standard 10. But I did notice that the length on them varies quite a bit. I think they really go all the way from 45 minutes to 65 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool, right? I mean, it just shows that now you've got people who are making media for the non-standard format. They don't have to fit it into a cable TV time slot anymore, so they can just kind of make it the way they want to make it. And listening back through the episodes of The Office Ladies, which is about the show The Office with some of the people that were in it, it's really interesting because they talk about all the stuff that had to get cut out to make room for, or basically so that they had room for commercial breaks and still fit in the time slot because they were still doing it for network television. So they actually had all of these side stories and subplots and stuff that just never got any air, that were super funny and super good, but no one ever got to see them just because the format made them cut it out. And so I'm really excited about a world now where that won't ever happen.
Yeah. They should just put all those out though.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. Re-release them.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about The Office. We are here to talk about The Haunting of Bly Manor. And this one, so I had read about this before, but I think it's worth talking about because it's interesting. They are taking a page from the American Horror Storybook in that season 2 is in no way related story-wise to season 1, but they are using a lot of the same actors in just different roles. So just because one actor was in the first one and is in this one doesn't mean that the characters are the same or that they have anything to do with each other. They take place in a different time and a different place. And I think that that's interesting. I like that they are sort of they're not forced to try and come up with these big, like, super overarching storylines that will go from season to season. It's like every season can be a totally fresh start. And I think that with American Horror Story, they kind of ran out of good ideas.
Well, yeah.
Pretty quickly. But with this one, I'm hoping that's not the case.
Well, I think as long as they do it right, that's something that could potentially just keep on going. Yep. Like as long as you can come up with a good story and do it correctly, or like you have a good storyline, you have good acting, like you can just keep that going for years.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed too that the writer, his name is Mike Flanagan, and I knew that looked familiar, but I couldn't come up with why, so I read about him. He also wrote and directed Dr. Sleep, the screenplay version of it. So he is someone who I feel like I kind of trust, but I also think he works better for a series than he does for a movie. Because I felt like with that movie, they tried to pack way too much in, and there was a lot of, like dead space. It didn't have that, I'm going to grab you and make you scared in an hour and a half magic that I like for a good horror movie to have. But I think for him to have a whole season to be able to kind of like build those moods and develop the characters and bring together all of these different like scary elements into a more full story is kind of a better fit for him. So, lots of reasons to be positive about the series.
Well, and I guess we could always say that, that's something we could see, we'll see if it happens.
Sure.
Depending on how this season goes. Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I mean, I noticed the name Mike Flanagan, but I couldn't have pinpointed who he was. So I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, and something else that I thought was kind of interesting with this one is we are a little late. I mean, it's been out for over a week at this point. And so I've heard people talk about it, or I've seen some reviews. And what I've consistently heard is that it's not as scary as the first season, but it also has generally gotten like super positive reviews. So I think that's interesting because going into it, that made me think that it is trying to be a different experience than season one was. And I'm kind of glad I knew that because that I think helped me like adjust expectations a little bit. But I really enjoyed these first two episodes, and I totally agree with the assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the thing with The Haunting of Hill House, where I didn't necessarily think it was, the scariest thing ever. We just thought it was well made.
Oh,
Like there were so many scenes there that was like, oh my God, like this, like is incredibly sad, or, whatever. And it's just really good storyline and really good acting, and they filmed it great. And you see the same kind of hints of that filming aspects just in the first two episodes that we've seen, like the long tracking shots and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's definitely off to a great start. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, going to The Haunting of Hill House, I don't know if we necessarily did think it was super scary. But there was obviously, some horror aspects to it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really left anybody scarred for life, but to me, it was just like a good, entertaining kind of horror mystery show. So, but yeah, so I thought it was interesting that with this one, they did like a decent amount of setup in the beginning and then never flashed back to it. So, like that's kind of a movie trope almost. Like I feel like it's a Christmas movie trope where you've got like grandpa or somebody telling the kid a story. And then the movie is the story, but you hear him as the narrator, and like every now and then it cuts back to the person telling and the person listening to the story. This one kind of set it up as the person is telling the story to the wedding guests, but then there is, at least in episode 1, no flashbacks to remind you that you're in a story that's being told.
Yeah, like until the end.
Yeah, and so my question for you, and we'll check back in on this later, is who do you think the lady with the white hair is? The narrator, the one telling the story.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think it's like I don't think it's the main actress, whatever her name was. What was it?
I feel like that'd be too straightforward, right?
Yeah,
Danny?
yeah. What was her name?
Danny?
Danny. That's right. Yeah. I kept writing Nanny, so that works out.
Danny the nanny. Yeah.
Yeah. D-A-N-I. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if maybe we haven't seen her yet. Maybe we have.
Well, it's just there aren't that many characters at the house, so it's like, who would know all the details of this story? And so I was wondering if maybe it's like the little girl. But another thing I noticed too was it really doesn't tip its hand a lot as to when it's happening. I mean, things look like fairly modern.
Well, so the first scene is in 2007, and then the when it cuts back is 1987.
Oh, did it say that? Did it say 1987 when it cut back? Okay, I totally missed that.
So that's why
I learned something.
That's why I didn't think it. I think it was 2007, but I don't. I didn't think it was the little girl either, but I did that just based off of like the year, where I was like, that's 1987.
Yeah, so the little girl wouldn't be old enough then. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is Danny.
But that little girl could be the one that's getting married, because if you add that up, she's 6 or 7, and you got 20 years onto that. Yeah, that's about the time people get married.
Yeah,
unless you're from Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She's obviously like, I don't know, a main, one of the main characters, but we don't know who. What's funny is when I saw her, I was like, God, it seems like she's put, some years on, like, looks like she's aged, and then I realized that it was made to be that way. Like she was made to be older.
Well, 2020 has just aged everyone 100 years at this point.
True. So, yeah.
But no, I thought it was interesting because you have to have the setup to like explain how she got to the manor and everything. And I feel like they did a good job of giving you just enough of that, but not too much, and moving through it fairly quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it, and I think the good thing about it as well, I mean, they did a really good job how she got there. But you still don't know much about like her past, and why she's run away and stuff, which I think they'll obviously get into. Otherwise, it'll make for an awkward movie. Mm-hmm. But I think the build up and the intro to it was definitely great, and I think that they're doing a really good job with making you like certain characters and stuff, or for example, Owen. Like, you just really like Owen, just seems like a real nice guy. He was in the beginning, the intro scene. I'm pretty sure that was him, given the...
Oh, interesting.
Given the toast.
Yeah, that's a good theory.
But, he's really likable, and, I think they also do a really good job with, like, making you not like Owen. Mm-hmm. The boy. They do a good job making Miles like, it's like 1 second like he's like a legit kid, Yeah. And then the next second like he's super, super strange, which I think strange kind of comes out in episode 2. For season 1, like there were still like some like hints where it was just like, at one time I was like, maybe Owen, like at the very beginning introducing Flora and or I keep saying Owen, when they introduced Flora and Miles, like I thought for a second, like, I wonder if Miles is real, like just the way he wasn't really talking. He talked to Flora. It's like, I wonder if like maybe he's someone that she sees. I was obviously wrong about that, but I think the character introductions have been good so far. Now we also have like, I feel like American actors putting on British accents, which is kind of strange.
A little rough sometimes, yeah.
But I thought it was like actually kind of good.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, like, it was rarely so bad that it, like, took me out of the moment,
Yeah. I just kept thinking, like, how awkward would it be to try to do that in front of people? Like, to do the accent in front of, like, British people, Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I think they did a good job on the casting. Like, every character seems to fit. Yeah. At least as far as I can tell. Like, I think the kids were good choices for creepy little kids, and Danny was a good choice for sort of the young, innocent, former teacher who's looking to start over somewhere, and the people working around the house. Like you said, Owen is obviously like supposed to be like charming and likable, and they got a good person for that. So yeah. Overall, I thought it's good.
Now,
I was just gonna say, but obviously this series is very much like meant to be placed in the horror genre. So I was gonna kind of ask, what are some of the things that maybe stood out to you in this episode as far as ways that they're in that? Because in general, until the very end, there wasn't anything super blatantly scary about this one. And I think the narrator even said at one point that in those beginning days, there was nothing, particularly off around it.
Well, so, the people, which I'm just going to say, like, the people who do the haunting. I'm just going to call them the haunting people. So, like, the, casting crew, whatever. I feel like one thing that they have going for them in this series that people had to learn about in the Hill House series is, people know, like, oh, we got what's in the background of these, so you're looking for them, which I didn't, I'm sticking to the game plan, like, I want to go into this fresh, mind and not, just taking the show for what it's worth. Katie definitely looked it up. To where the ghosts are in the background, but so they have that aspect going for them. So you're constantly looking in the background, even if there's not something there. You're still like, what's that? We rewound it a couple times, in each episode. But as far as the first episode goes, I think what they did, including the lady who has like the glowing eyes, like ghost figure that seems to be kind of following Danny. Mm-hmm. I think is one thing that's specifically, tied into the horror genre. But when she got locked in the closet specifically, I thought that was the creepiest.
She lost it. She panicked.
Yeah, and like it definitely makes sense. She's in the room. She's in the room with whoever shows up in the mirrors reflections. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With her, which I'm sure we'll find out who that is. But that's someone who's followed her, because that was like in one of the first scenes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. When she was still in London.
Yeah. You see that reflection, but
well, I kind of wondered if we're going to find out something more about her getting like locked up somewhere or something later, because that response was just so over the top.
Well, makes sense.
It was like sheer panic. It wasn't just I'm mad at the kids.
Yeah. That's very true. I bet that does happen.
Yep. But yeah, one thing I thought stood out too is, of course, we have another Hereditary style creepy dollhouse, which seems to be like a requirement for all horror made in the last 2 years. So Flora has the little girl has the dollhouse, and she makes a Danny doll, and she apparently has lots of ghost dolls too. And then there's like an extra creepy looking one on the floor under the dresser. And when Danny tries to pick it up, Flora freaks out and then makes Danny promise not to leave her room at night. So basically they've just like tipped their hand that, okay, this house is haunted. You're going to find out. And the kids obviously know more about it than the adults do, or than the adults are saying about it. And she's been warned not to leave her room, which means these things are active at night. So to me, that was like a very, very blatant, okay, and here's the part where you should legit start worrying. Because everything was just kind of so like nice and pleasant up until that point, that I thought it was interesting. That felt very abrupt to me.
Yeah, it adds to the creepy factor of it too, because you have this little girl like saying like, promise me you'll stay in the room, which, I think by that time, like, you saw that she was like talking to like, you see her talking to someone else, or like acknowledging someone else.
Yeah,
behind
I noticed,
behind Danny.
Yeah, when Danny was giving her the bath, it was like she was constantly looking over her shoulder and observing someone, but there was nothing there. So, yeah.
Super creepy.
Yeah, it really was. But again, that's kind of like the style, I think, of this show, or what this show is going to be this season, is that it's the subtle creepy. It's not really the super over the top stuff, at least as of yet.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But yeah, so let's see, another thing that stood out to me, and this is just sort of random. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I noticed Mrs. Gross never eats.
Yeah, or Owen.
Oh, I didn't think about it with Owen.
Yeah. Yeah, but neither one eat.
Yeah.
They're very strange. Like, I feel like they're more open about Mrs. Gross not doing it.
Yes.
But
I feel like in the script they're like calling that to your attention on purpose. So, yeah. Yeah, that is just kind of weird. And then there's I guess the only other thing I really had in my notes from this episode was the part, well, two things outside of the ending. The part where Danny sees the random white guy on the balcony.
Yeah.
And then brings it up and everybody's just like, yeah, nobody was here. And she tries to like insist, and then she goes to look and she finds one of the dolls. So she thinks maybe Flora's just been up there. But then she sees Mrs. Gross has lit the candles in that chapel and goes to talk to her. And that's when you find out what happened to the previous babysitter that had been there, and how like Flora found the body and stuff. So to me, that kind of steers it back towards, well, we had all these reasons to feel like creepy about the lake and the Lady of the Lake or whatever, and these dolls that are all over the house, and then that's almost like a reset. Like, well, she had a super traumatic experience with the previous babysitter, and that's why she now is like protective about the lake and stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me, coming away from that, it was almost like they were trying to level set again and make you not like on the edge of your seat, which I think they did basically just to set up the next pieces where, you know, she gets locked in the closet and then comes out and they're the dirty footprints.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing too that ties into that, when Danny goes to see Miss Flora in the church or chapel or whatever, there's the 4 lit candles, and she mentions like basically a candle for each person's past or something like that. So I'm curious on, like, I think one of them is like the previous nanny, but who are the other 3?
So probably the 2 parents.
Yeah.
But I still don't know who number 4 would be.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's like, I wonder who that is. I mean, because like it made a point to like show the candles like before the episode was over, like just like have a zoom up on the candles. And I was like, that means something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't really thought through that. So, but anyway, yeah. So it ends, and there are the muddy footprints, which kind of just confirms the whole. That's the reason that she was being told not to leave her room at night. Seems like the kids are dialed in and know about it, and so they seem to be at least more in touch with things than the adults are letting on. And yeah. So did you have anything else for episode 1, or should we do predictions?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I have 4 predictions coming out of this episode.
Oh, okay.
Number 1 is that Mrs. Gross is some kind of like supernatural being.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be more to the story there. And they've made her character just like too slightly weird for everything to be okay. And the whole like emphasizing that she's not eating, I think, is deliberate.
Yeah.
My second prediction. Oh, go. I was just going to say, sorry. My second prediction is that the ghost of the previous au pair is what's coming into the house at night. So, like, I think she got she drowned in that lake, and so it's her ghost that's coming back into the house.
Okay, that makes sense. Because there are muddy footprints. Okay.
Yep. And then I also think that there's some kind of like curse on the children.
Hmm.
And I think the uncle knows it, and that's why he doesn't ever come around them.
I see.
Because they seem to really emphasize, like, Miles being desperate to know about his uncle, or if his uncle wants to know about him and stuff. So it seems like there is, like, a reason for that separation. Because, like, if you were going to spend all the money to hire somebody to come, like, educate and take care of the kids, why would you never be around them unless you had a reason to avoid it. So, and then my last one is Owen's mom is dead.
Oh.
So they talk about like, oh yeah, he keeps leaving earlier and earlier to go, take care of his mom. He moved back for his mom. I kind of wonder if maybe she's not actually alive.
Oh, okay.
Because they talk about her a ton, but she's always this kind of off-camera thing.
Yeah.
So this one is like my longest shot, but I feel like there's got to be some kind of twist or something coming there.
So I think that the reason why they don't have, I think the reason why Owen and Miss Gross I think the reason why Owen doesn't eat is to try to take off the fact that Miss Gross isn't as well. But Miss Gross is actually like a spirit or something. There's something, going on with that for sure. She's obviously staring off a lot, throughout the first episode for sure. But yeah, that's interesting about Owen's mom. I didn't think about that. Something was obviously going on, but
it just seemed like
you
kind
actually
of a
see Owen leave, because he picked up Danny in the first episode, like drive a car and stuff. And I don't know if you could do that otherwise. And so I guess my first prediction is I think that Miss Gross is a ghost for one. I don't think that what's the gardener's name? Shoot.
We haven't met the gardener yet.
In the first episode we did.
Oh, I didn't think she was on until the second.
Yeah, she came in when they were eating lunch.
I thought that was the second episode.
It doesn't matter. So
anyway,
I think that I don't think she is though. I think she's real. And I think she plays a bigger part into it. That's all I know.
No, you're totally right. The gardener is in the first episode.
Is she?
Yeah, sorry.
It's hard when we do 2 episodes together to try not to talk about the second. But yeah. Because like they make a point to say like she didn't acknowledge, whatever.
Yeah. No, you're totally right.
Yeah. So I don't think that she is though. I don't think that she is a ghost as well because she comes and goes. Yeah. Now I think that all 3 of them know about what goes on and why they don't give a person a heads up. Well, just baffles me, but still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Well, you ready to move on to episode 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Episode 2 is called The Pupil. And I really liked that it just started with Mrs. Gross mopping up the muddy footprints.
Yeah.
So there's basically like no break in between. Like where one stops is where the next one starts. There was no like last week on The Haunting of Hill House, it just went kind of straight there. And so if you're sitting there watching them back to back, that's a really good way of like keeping the mood and the feel and the energy of the previous one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it adds to, it is kind of like a really long movie when you do something like that, where it just kind of continues on. And you'll see it from different shows from time to time where they'll do that. Sons of Anarchy did that a few times. Yeah. But, yeah, it's just nice to know where you're at the beginning of the movie. Because like you said, it does get, well, like you were kind of saying, it gets kind of annoying to hear like previously on, and then you have to like relive. I mean, especially in like nowadays when you're watching everything on Netflix,
Yeah.
Everyone's chain watching, or,
Yeah. Or if it's just like a total like scene change or something, if you're watching them back to back, to me that can be like really jarring. It's like you set up this big ending of an episode and then all of a sudden it's like you're in a place with a totally different mood, different characters, different scene. And I don't like that near as much. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that until I watched this and liked it.
Right.
So, yeah. But it stood out, too, that the narrator was back at this point and talks about how a few times a year she started her day with a mop, always the same path from the door to the forbidden wing and back again. And that was interesting to me because that means that the narrator, the person telling this story, like has that perspective of like having been in the house over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because how would she know how many times a year Mrs. Gross did this unless she had been there for, at least a year? But I am very curious how that's all going to come together because I feel like it would be very easy to present this same show without the narration aspect. So the fact that it's happening is a deliberate choice, and there has to be some reason behind that choice, but I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way to continue on with like the style that they did in the first series, where like you had the flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and although like the first 2 episodes are pretty much just a straight flashback so far, it's just a good way to tie into it to keep the same kind of feeling going between
Mm-hmm.
both.
Yeah, well, and then this one had a proper flashback as well.
Yeah,
To when Miles was at boarding school.
That's a good point. Yeah, it
And
definitely did.
one thing that kind of stood out to me too with that, and I don't know if it like matters. This may be a completely throwaway comment, but just I kept waiting for the priests to be bad, or for like something, to happen with that.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like the priest was like a generally like supportive and decent person.
Yeah.
And as far as you can tell, Danny was previously a teacher, and it really stressed her out because she felt like she could see all the problems that these kids had and she couldn't solve them all. And so it's just kind of casting teachers as like generally nice, well-meaning people, which I find a little bit refreshing compared to like every other TV show ever.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I mean, that whatever the priest was that was helping Miles out at the beginning or throughout the whole episode. I mean, he's such a nice guy, like legit nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so they had the conversation about Jesus and casting the demons out of the man, and then them going into the pigs, and they talk about like permission and about it was just kind of a weird conversation that also seemed like very deliberate to put in the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if we're going to get into something possession related in this. You know what I mean? Not just like ghosts, but also something like possession.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's the thing with this series is you don't know what to expect. You're always looking in the background, think there's deeper meaning, with a lot of stuff. It gets you thinking, which is cool. Like I definitely like it. That's a good point. I bet it does have something to do with that.
Yeah.
It sucks though, because like also like the second that you pull up a phone because you got a text message or you check an email or something like that, it's like you missed something. You have to rewind and catch it again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I had one moment like that at the end of that, or towards the end of that flashback scene where he's in the tree and then he falls down and the other kid asks him why he jumped, and he said something about just looking for the right key.
Yeah.
Which seems weird. Mm-hmm. So that was a thing I wrote down because I'm not sure where it's going.
I was thinking when he said that, it was talking about like thinking about it after he got expelled, because the narrator jumped in and said they found the note. I was like, well, maybe he was trying to find the right key of how to get home.
Try to get sent home. Yeah, I had the same thought when they showed what the contents of that note were.
I felt like this one, like initially I was like, I mean, honestly, like, I think Miles' character is like wrote to be like this, and it makes sense. But like, I don't think he creeps me out as much as he just kind of pisses me off.
Yeah.
And which might be like what they are going for, But I think with this episode though, initially I was like, good Lord, like, okay, like, it was a really long time. Like a lot of time was spent, trying to get this kid expelled, but I think once it got back to the house and they started like playing like which was towards the end of the episode, but when they started playing like the hide and seek, I think that's when it really kind of opened stuff up.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, there's a lot, like throughout the first episode, like you saw the ghost in the background that was the plague doctor. So you have the doctor with a really long beak. I know you see him really well in one scene, but you can kind of see him in the background on another. You see the doll who they were, who the Flora was hiding and stuff. Like you see her, hidden where Flora was hiding and all that. You see the guy pop back up that Danny saw in the first episode. You see him, and then Owen pass out, who I assume was trying to hide something. So I'm thinking that the ghost who who Danny saw in the first episode that was standing up in the, the left wing or the old wing is maybe a bad one.
Yeah.
But we don't know that yet.
Yeah. Well, so another thing from that flashback was when Miles said something along the lines of like, why do the bad ones get to come back but not my parents? That definitely makes me think that there are like he knows they're negative, like he doesn't think highly of the ghosts in the house maybe. So that was something that I want to track and see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably going to be a mixture of good and bad. Yeah.
I feel like there would have to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, just based on what we've seen so far. Like, I think we both think Mrs. Gross has some, like, supernatural element to her, and she seems like a very, like, positive presence. The kids seem to like her,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then she also, I noticed in this one, wouldn't drink either when she was offered one.
Yeah.
So, and then there was the scene, because this is the one where I thought, in my mind, the reason I was thinking the Gardener episode 2, this is the one where she's like comforting Danny when after Flora finds those glasses in the suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
And those glasses look an awful lot like the ones that flash.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something there. And, yeah, I'll be interested to see. But then,
well, yeah. So you have the glasses, which causes Danny to hyperventilate and freak out, which is when she really kind of sparks up, like the conversation with the gardener.
Yeah.
But then also, at the end, you have the gardener freaking out about the roses that Miles cut to give to Danny. Like she was like,
that creepy?
I felt like she was like, yes, that was very creepy between Miles and Danny. Like, it's like he'll act like an adult, which might be the possession aspect of it, that you're talking about. But then, like, I feel like she was like super, like, kind of overreacting about it, wanting to kill him, and they're saying she wanted to kill him and stuff, and it's, it's like, there's
a little over the top.
Yeah, I was like, there's something here, something going on, like either a history there or I don't know, but there's something strange going on with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely, so there's the scene where Miles is apologizing to Danny with the flowers, apologizing for locking her in the closet in the previous episode. And then he like pushes her hair back over her ear. And then he says that it's like draining to indulge children. And it's just like such a weird kind of character flip thing. It reminded me a lot. Did you ever watch Umbrella Academy?
Mm-mm.
So there's a character there who was like a time traveler. And so he's this old man stuck in like a 13-year-old's body. And so he makes all these like old man comments, but it's coming out of a kid, which generally they use for humor. In this case, it just came across as creepy. But that was another Netflix original that I feel like has kind of that same trope. Good story, I know. But then, yeah, kind of I think one of the big, like we talked about in the last one, the really scary stuff didn't happen until the very end of the episode. And I felt like this one was very similar in that at the end is when they're playing hide and seek. And there's that scene where Danny finds the music box playing in the forbidden room.
Yeah.
And then like Flora is hiding nearby and there's like that creepy ghost behind her and they're both humming like along with the music box. And then Flora turns around and tells it to stop and it does.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting because she knew the ghost was there. She was not at all bothered by it. And then she turned around and gave it an order and it obeyed.
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
Well, yeah, like she was annoyed with it. Like like with the humming part. It's like she had enough. Is this little girl the ringleader of this place or what?
Right, yeah. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then when Danny is looking for Miles, she sees that guy that she saw on the balcony before, kind of like obscured outside the window, and then he fades into the darkness, and then it ends with Miles passed out, and they revive him, and he sees that guy outside the window. Mm-hmm. So my prediction is that I think Danny lost a boyfriend, and I think that's what she like moved away from, and I think that guy that she keeps seeing is him. So I think he followed, like his ghost, either his ghost followed her there, but it seems like Miles saw it too, so it can't just be like in her head, right?
And Flora too, because she had the doll of him. The doll of that guy was there as well.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good point. I think my prediction with the lady's reflection, I wonder if she's the one maybe who locked up Danny, like, we're talking about being locked up.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was the one who did it or something, to that effect. But I think the guy is someone from the manor itself. It's already there.
Oh, okay.
Because I feel like she would have recognized him, because she went out chasing after it, like when she saw him, she's like, screw this, and went and got like a fireplace poker and went to go take care of business. And
but if she knew he was dead,
I wonder if he's like the bad guy of it.
The bad boy of the crew. But then I didn't really have any other great predictions other than doubling down on Mrs. Gross being supernatural somehow, and then I totally think Danny and Jamie will hook up at some point because it's a Netflix show. So
it makes sense based off the first one too.
Yeah,
I get behind that.
Yep, it's happening. So that's episodes 1 and 2. Did you have any other like closing thoughts or like high level things that you've noticed about the series on the whole?
Not yet. Just keep an eye out in the background. I feel like the first episode was a little bit better than the second one. I feel like the second one kind of drug out until they started playing hide and seek, and you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
Which I think is just getting there,
Yeah, I definitely hope that is like foreshadowing of what's to come, because they set up a really creepy scenario there, and I thought executed it very well.
Yeah.
So
that's it. I'm excited to see what we got in 3 and 4.
Yeah, next time we will be back with episodes 3 and 4. We will continue tracking our predictions and keep talking about this show until we get to the end of it. And we need to figure out how often we want to release these. I don't really want to space them out for a whole month, because I think most people are probably going to watch these quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah. See you guys.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.